Hello, this is Cinema 1408, and this is the film The Mandela Effect. A man becomes obsessed with facts and events that have been collectively misremembered by thousands of people. Believing the phenomenon to be the symptom of something larger, his obsession eventually leads him to question reality itself. Brendan, a video game designer, explains that scientists study how rats use memory to learn and adapt in mazes. He often reads these studies for inspiration in his game design, highlighting that without memory, humanity wouldn't progress. One day, Brendan, his wife Claire, and their daughter Sam visit the beach. They have a wonderful time, and after a short nap, Sam decides to collect shells with her Curious George toy, promising to stay out of the water. However, when the waves carry away the toy, Sam goes into the water to retrieve it, but never returns. The family supports Brendan and Claire through the funeral, but they remain devastated. Claire feels like it's not real, and Brendan can hardly function, often crying in Sam's room. Months later, Claire decides it's time to move and starts packing Sam's room. Brendan isn't ready and panics, begging her to leave everything as it is. While handling Sam's favorite books, he notices Berenstain Bears is spelled with an A, though he remembers it with an E. Brendan can't sleep that night and hears a noise. Grabbing a bat, he heads to the kitchen, nearly attacking his brother-in-law Matt, who is raiding the fridge. They share a late-night snack and chat. Brendan asks Matt about the book title and is thrilled when Matt also recalls it being spelled with an E. Unable to sleep, Brendan searches the internet for an explanation and discovers thousands of articles on the subject. Many people share the same memory and suspect a conspiracy. He stumbles upon the Mandela Effect, a phenomenon where a large group of people shares false memories, often attributing it to alternate timelines or parallel universes. The term comes from many people wrongly remembering Nelson Mandela dying in prison. The next morning, Claire prepares to return to work. Brendan notices a family picture on the fridge showing the Griffith Observatory. When he asks, Claire confirms she remembers taking the photo there. Brendan, however, remembers it being taken at the Pacific Science Center. Claire dismisses his confusion and heads to work. Later, Brendan shows Matt what he found about the Mandela Effect, including detailed explanations and numerous examples like Mandela's supposed prison death, Darth Vader's misquoted line, and the spelling of Looney Tunes. Brendan believes they're jumping between parallel realities or living in a simulation, but Matt doesn't take him seriously. In the following days, Brendan delves deeper into the Mandela Effect, watching numerous documentaries on string theory and the possibility of a real matrix. He takes extensive notes and becomes obsessed with the subject, likely as a way to distract himself from his grief. One afternoon, Brendan visits a priest to ask why God would take a child's life like Sam's. The priest explains that Sam's death wasn't part of God's plan or desire, but a result of free will, which many believe is God's greatest gift to humanity. Returning home, Brendan begins investigating free will as part of his obsession. Later, he meets with Matt again, continuing to pester him about the Mandela Effect. Matt explains that he spoke with a neurologist friend who said that our brains are imperfect. Memories can become scrambled, and gaps are often filled with external information. Brendan, however, refuses to believe it's just a coincidence. During dinner, Claire expresses her concern about Brendan's withdrawal and urges him to share his troubles. Brendan asks her to describe the Monopoly Man, and Claire mentions a monocle. When she checks the game box, she sees the character doesn't have one. Brendan then shows her Sam's Curious George book, insisting the monkey used to have a tail and even swearing that Sam's plushie had one too. Claire is uncomfortable with using their daughter's death in this way, but Brendan persists, reminding her that she had said it didn't feel real after the funeral. When he starts talking about shifting realities, Claire snaps, scolding Brendan for refusing to move on and for pouring his grief into this obsession instead. Sometime later, Brendan and Claire go on a double date with Matt and his new boyfriend. Brendan is distracted and barely engages in the conversation, attempting to escape to the bar. Matt reminds him that he and Claire need to support each other, so Brendan reluctantly returns to the table. Once home, Brendan dives back into researching simulation theory, which proposes that we live in a computer-programmed reality. His notes grow and he starts keeping a board, desperately seeking proof of a parallel universe where Sam is still alive. He watches videos of famous people like Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson discussing the topic, and eventually discovers the name Roland Fuchs, who is said to be working on proving the simulation theory. Unable to find a working video online, Brendan turns to piracy sites and manages to download a corrupted file. Using special software, he fixes it and watches a lecture by Dr. Fuchs. Unfortunately, the video corrupts again, leaving Brendan with nothing. Determined, he searches for Fuchs's current workplace and records a video message for him. Days pass without a response, so Brendan travels to the university to meet Fuchs in person. However, Fuchs is too busy to listen to a random fan's ramblings. That night, Brendan tries to reconnect with Claire and gets frisky, but he pauses, thinking he hears Sam calling him. Frustrated, Claire suggests he should see a grief counselor. Brendan takes a bold step the next day, showing up unannounced at Fuchs's house and persuading him to spare a few minutes of his time. Fuchs dismisses the Mandela effect as false memories, but suggests they could be glitches in the simulation after a system update. Brendan proposes hacking the reality if it's just computer code, but Fuchs finds the idea absurd and brings him to the university. During their journey, they debate the notion of reality existing only when observed, likening it to video games loading areas when players enter. Brendan suggests overwhelming the simulation's processor instead of hacking it, requiring a powerful machine like a quantum computer, which the university possesses. In the lab, as Fuchs explains how to input a code, they are interrupted by Dr. Manning, who disapproves of Brendan's presence. Returning to Fuchs' house, Fuchs speculates that the simulation may have tried to halt him because he's a flaw in the system. He warns Brendan about the power of ideas, leaving Brendan to ponder whether the simulation aims for recreation or control, likening its controller to political and corporate powers. Later that night, Brendan is plagued by a dream of Sam's tragic death and awakens to her voice calling for him once more. Rushing to her room, he witnesses a human shadow glitch and vanish. Attempting to clear his mind with a drive, Brendan sees the world as interconnected code linked to a quantum computer. Falling asleep in the car, he awakens in a downtown alley, startled by a piercing sound before abruptly returning to his bed. Upon leaving his room, Brendan is astonished to find Sam in her own room, but she disappears when he tries to follow her. Claire appears, dragging Sam to the bathroom, but only Claire is there when Brendan follows. Feeling like he's losing his mind, Brendan seeks solace in Claire's comfort. Subsequently, Brendan immerses himself in coding, obsessively working on a program to overload the simulation. Claire grows increasingly concerned as Brendan spends all his time coding in the following days. One night, Sam appears in her parents' room, seeking comfort after a nightmare. Brendan peacefully sleeps next to her, but upon waking in the morning, he finds the bed empty. Assuming it was a dream, Brendan heads downstairs only to find Sam there as if nothing happened. Claire, Matt, and others also treat her normally, leading Brendan to question reality. He calls everyone he knows, but no one remembers Sam's death, confirming his suspicions of reality being rewritten. Attempting to discuss this with Fuchs proves futile as he avoids Brendan's calls. Brendan believes the simulation brought Sam back to dissuade him from creating the code, but he's overjoyed to have her back. The family spends blissful moments together until Claire wakes up one night from a harrowing nightmare. Although she claims to be fine, her behavior becomes erratic the next day. In an effort to uplift her spirits, Brendan takes the family pottery painting, but tensions rise when cracks appear on his pot, and Claire becomes aggressive. Returning home, Claire's agitation worsens, and she fixates on Sam, claiming the girl shouldn't be there. Concerned for his wife's well-being, Brendan asks Matt to watch over Sam and rushes to Fuchs's house, only to learn of the doctor's tragic self-deletion due to lack of recognition from the science community. As Brendan reflects on seeing Fuchs just days ago, a crack appears on the glass, reinforcing his belief in signs from the simulation. Determined to set things right, Brendan returns home to work on the code and records a video message for his family, fearing the simulation might target him as it did Fuchs. As Brendan works tirelessly on the code, Matt cares for Claire, who has become catatonic. When the code is finally ready, Brendan heads to the university, encountering Manning, who tries to stop him. In the scuffle, Brendan accidentally causes Manning's death, but presses on, determined to implement the code. Upon reaching the quantum computer, Brendan implants the code and watches as the machine emits strange noises. Rushing outside, he finds the parking lot empty and his car gone. Suddenly, he finds himself on a bus, receiving a call from Claire, who reports feeling unwell. Witnessing passengers glitching, Brendan disembarks and races through the city, observing various glitches like changing time, shifting colors of trees, and the presence of two moons. Finally reaching home, Brendan embraces his wife and daughter as the environment glitches around them. Claire's face distorts in pain, and as two moons collide in the sky, everything fades to black. The code appears on the screen as the universe reboots itself, replaying the entirety of existence. When the reboot concludes, Brendan finds himself on the beach with his family once more. This time, when Sam mentions collecting shells, Brendan insists she leave Curious George behind, thus saving her life.